Hi, everyone. This is Victoria and Claire with Studio Life,
Hey guys.
and and we're here today to talk about when you are starting a new class and offering a new opportunity, and the numbers are a little low.
hmm
How do we determine whether we're going to keep going with it? How do we try to pick up the numbers and promote the class? And sort of like, what are the signs of something that's working and something that's not working? So it's the thing, it's not the most fun challenge we have as working at a studio, but it's an opportunity and it's something that we know happens to people a lot and they have to decide whether to push forward or cut loose, and I think that's what we're gonna hopefully get some ideas about how to handle today. So, Claire, do you wanna kick
Yeah,
things off on this
absolutely.
topic?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a few different ways that you can decide to add a new class. And I think that's important to maybe some of the things that we're going to talk about. I mean, obviously, when you first start a studio, you build your schedule, you pick those sort of prime times, maybe times that you're available to teach and times that people will probably want to practice. And then I think there's this scenario where a person or a group of people comes to you and says, if you had a class at this time on this day, I would be here. And my two friends would come every week and it would be a done deal. And please have a class for us. Um, so I think there's some similarities and differences between those two things. I think when you
Mm,
just put a new class on the schedule because you think there should be a class on the schedule, a big mistake that we see a lot of people make is assuming that everyone realizes there's a new class on the schedule and is like, oh my goodness, wow, Tuesday at 6 p.m. I never saw that before. I'm going to book. No, that they're not going to notice really that there's a new class on the schedule, and you will need to aggressively promote it for people to
yeah.
understand that it's there. That's just the facts of life. People have a lot going on. So we recommend adding a note at the top of your schedule that you've added a new class, maybe flagging it using some emojis or some sort of other fanfare that you've added a new class, and then going hard on social media and
Mhm.
in a newsletter. And hopefully you still have a newsletter, sort of walking the line between feeling a bit old school and feeling very, very necessary these days. But yeah, you need to tell people more than once,
Yeah.
probably many more times than once. Yeah, I don't know, Victoria,
Mhm.
how you guys normally promote your newer classes, whether there's
Say
anything you found that's worked.
Yeah, there's a couple things I know that we try to push at our studio, and one of them is definitely having the instructors talk about it either at the beginning or the end of class. Like kind of like a community news moment, which
Yeah.
could be used for a lot of different things. Like I would say it's just a great opportunity for people to make connection and share information, but it's a great time to be like, "Hey, we're doing this new class, and here's why I think it would be great for people who are taking this class, why might you want to? It's a great time to just share announcements anyway. You have people in the room. I'd say again, it's easy at the beginning of class because everyone's kind of locked in and paying attention. But to say, like, hey, we're doing, this is a great time to share any news about the studio. And a big one would be we have a new class. And then to like, hopefully you can, you kind of have a reason for if you're like this class that you're in, here's why you should try out this new offering we have.
I'm going to say, as a yoga studio, that is trickier. And I found it really difficult as an instructor
Mm,
to know because in a yoga class, people are relaxing before the class starts and they're sort of in the zone
mm,
after the class ends. And I never sort of felt super
yeah.
comfortable with I 100% agree that it's the right thing to do and it's the best time to promote. Not
Mm,
even promote, that's a bit yuck, but say.
yeah,
But I think having a policy with all of your instructors maybe is a good idea then. Like maybe if you need to have a chat with your students, we do that at the start of class. And then that expectation
yeah.
is created. And people know that when the class wraps up, when they're in that deep sense of relaxation, no one's going to pop up and, sound like an infomercial or list off a whole bunch of things going on. So it's a bit of you
Yeah.
kind of have to pick and choose your battles with that one, but I'm
Mhm.
leaning towards before, but also consistency.
Yeah, that's true, but you can also have, like, print up a poster about it and put it in the
We had a
bathroom or on the
blackboard.
door.
Yeah. So we had a
Mm,
blackboard in my studio, and this will tie into some of our social media discussions soon. Yeah, so a
yeah,
blackboard that I updated, every week or every 2 weeks with upcoming events, and people would just glance at it and see what's going on. And again, we're back in
yeah.
that sort of old school. I mean, if you want to have a TV monitor, be my guest. But we found a blackboard or a whiteboard, or like you said, printing things up. That's
Yeah,
amazingly
corkboard.
effective.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Like social media, absolutely, but also
Yeah,
in studio media, in person, I don't think it's a bad idea.
no, 100%.
Um, yeah.
And then you get
Another
a few
thing
people. Oh, go ahead. We're just
I was gonna say, this is
interrupting
the
each
one
other.
I'm like, I'm just gonna share this because I really liked it and it was a cool thing our studio did.
Yeah, perfect.
Um, Basically, we knew we were launching a new class and we were like, okay, we're launching it. It was actually, this was a while ago, but we were like, we're launching it in May. And so for the whole month of April, we had it on the schedule, but it was not a class you could book. It was just, a little
Mm,
announcement like this class this time, a little emoji like starting in May.
that's a
So
great
people would
idea.
see it for a month before it actually got started.
Yeah,
And I loved that. I've been telling people all about it because I'm like, it's a really smart move. Um,
yeah,
because yes, maybe you're not going to notice the new thing on the schedule, but this is a new thing on the schedule that I can't even book yet. And it's
right.
got an emoji and it's obvious and it's set and it doesn't look like a class name. It says starting in May,
Yeah,
insert class name here. And yeah, I just loved that. I thought it was a great way to be like prep it. And I think like that will give you a better sense of what's going on because if you do let people book ahead, we'll have a month of promoting it to see, did people book ahead? How's it
right.
looking now?
Yeah, you can't expect
Because,
to announce a class on Monday and have people booking for that Friday. Like that's just not realistic.
right,
You need to plan out
right.
further than that, and you need to give people more time to adjust. Even if it's a time
Yeah.
they've asked for, even if it's a time that seems like an
Mhm.
absolute no-brainer. You've got
Yeah.
a Saturday morning class and you want to run a Sunday morning class. Surely that's the same thing. Not really.
People tell me they're like, I got to move my shifts so that I can get to this class.
That's awesome.
Like
Yeah,
oh my god, it's the coolest feeling in the world, but
yeah,
it's
of
also
course.
like if people care, they'll let you know, but
Yeah,
people can't jump into a full and new schedule right away. Give them lead time. Let them know
yeah,
ahead of time before you're just like, "Oh, the first month no one came to this new class." Well,
right.
how much did we promote it in the beginning?
And then you do the terrible thing, on so well, it's not terrible, but it feels terrible where you post on social media saying, "Hey, we're no longer running a Sunday morning class. We just didn't get the numbers," and you get all those comments underneath saying, "Oh man, I was going to come this week," or "Oh, I just needed to like
Mhm.
get childcare," or "I was working on it." But really, 4 or 5 weeks goes by really quickly in a student's life. Like that's like no time at all. But as a studio owner, when you're watching the numbers and you've paid a teacher to teach for
Mhm.
5 or 6 weeks and they're not getting the numbers, that's an eternity. So there's a perception difference as well between what you're expecting and what your students are expecting. And if there's a mismatch there, that can kind of upset the apple cart too. So yeah, you need to align
Yeah.
your expectations, I think, with your students' expectations.
Well, that's an interesting point now because Claire, if, like we're kind of, knowing that we have to set expectations, we have to let people know ahead of time, we have to market the thing. But let's say we've been running it for 2 months and the numbers are still kind of low.
Right.
Like, at what point do we just do we need to pull the plug, kind of
Yeah.
thing? Like, do you have a sense of what you would feel about that or what you would do?
In retrospect, sooner rather than later, I think I held on to classes for way too long as a studio owner, because you are getting those sort of little drips of dopamine from people saying, "I'm going to come, what a great idea, we'll be there." And then the numbers just aren't reflecting that vocal enthusiasm. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
as a studio owner, enthusiasm is great, but you've got to pay the bills. And that's obviously an eternal battle that we'll talk about more in future sessions. I think sooner. I think it sets an expectation with your students that they can't just sit around and wait. And again, they're probably not giving it as much thought as you are. But
Mhm.
one of the things that I found was effective, particularly in that second scenario where maybe there was a person or a group of people asking for a specific class time, like, we all
Mhm.
drop our kids off at school at 8:30. If you did a 9 o'clock class on a Wednesday morning, we'd come from dropping our kids off at school and four of us mums would be here. We'd love it. We'd love to get some yoga and chill. If you're like, great, that sounds awesome. My recommendation in that scenario is to set up a limited series. So set up 4 weeks at a
Mhm.
time where you say, no worries, commit to the four
Oh,
weeks, book and pay up front, give me 4 weeks, open it up to the public as well and say, hey, we're trying this new class. Would you like to come? You can let people drop in, but you need to get to the point where there's enough people booked in for that first 4 weeks to make it worthwhile. So you're asking for commitment from these people that are theoretically committed, but you're
yeah.
also letting kind of testing the waters for additional people to come if they want to come. And that just gives you that financial security. Then if after 4 weeks they're like, "Yep, we loved it," you could do another 4 weeks, or you could
Mhm.
open it up more like a regular class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also
So
a
that
great tool for if, like, an instructor comes to you as the owner and is
yeah,
like, "I really wanna teach this. I really wanna I think this oppor" like, because sometimes you have somebody coming in and being like, "I wanna do this so bad,"
yeah,
and there's definitely an element of, like, when you're a studio owner, like, wanting to make your teachers happy and being like, "Cool, you wanna do this? Great."
yeah,
But this isn't a great example of, like, maybe do a limited series and test it out and do some pop-ups or workshops or, write like a 4-week course of it, just like super intro to see if there actually is interest. And then
yeah,
hopefully your instructor will be like, I want to do this. I'm going to post about it. I'm going to promote it too. Because if they want it,
yeah.
then, you know, it's a good
They're
time
gonna
to
be
get them
enthusiastic
to kind
about
of
it.
push it.
100%. Yeah, I think it's a really good tool, getting that commitment up front, and it really helps. But yeah, you're still going to come up against those moments where you just don't know whether it's time to pull the pin. But
Yeah.
like I said, I think looking back in retrospect, I wish I'd been a little bit more decisive and
Mhm.
pulled things
Mhm.
off the timetable. You can always put them back on. And you know what? Sometimes you try something, it doesn't work, and you try it again in 6 months and it works. And just, yeah,
Absolutely.
going with the flow.
Or maybe it's one of
Yeah,
those things where you're like, "Okay, maybe we just need to make this slightly more irregular and not
that
a
too.
weekly option. Maybe
Maybe
it's
it's a
once a
workshop.
month."
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
workshop more than, it's a 2.5 hour workshop more than a weekly class, or it's fortnightly and you're trading off with, different teachers are doing it.
Mhm.
I know there's local studios here that have a Saturday afternoon class. No one wants to teach every Saturday at 4 o'clock, but they rotate it.
Mhm. They
And that
switch
works
it
well
up.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, works well to mix it
Yeah.
up and can keep it going. And then you get different students coming that love the different types of teachers too.
You've
Yeah.
gotta, you know, either change something up if it's not working or, say, "Hey, maybe this isn't for us right now."
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of options there.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, Claire.
Thanks, Victoria.